Hey folks, Sev here, and today I'm gonna read a preview of Chapter 4 of Economy of Wisdom. Let's start. Chapter 4: The Rewiring of the Mind. The greatest strength of a stateless system components is also the greatest weakness. They can't sense if any other part fails. Your mind operates in a similar way. It can get stuck in patterns, unable to recognize its own dysfunction. Unlike a computer, though, you can't simply reboot your brain. You have to rewire it while it's running. Let me show you how. But first, understand that your brain isn't designed for happiness or fulfillment. It's designed for survival. This means it's naturally wired to avoid threats and maintain safe patterns. I learned this through direct experience. I discovered this firsthand while skiing. Years ago, I had a bad crash that left me with a concussion. As I was going full speed down the slope, I ducked through the branches only to smash headfirst into a wooden stump. As I gathered my gear and skid down the slope, I felt water running down my face. I wiped it with my hand. It wasn't water, it was blood. As I descended towards the end of the run, the nausea set in. After that, my brain would freeze up every time I would approach a wooded section. The old pattern screaming danger was so strong that even knowing better intellectually didn't help. I had to consciously create new neural pathways to override that fear response. Here's how I did it. First, I noticed exactly when and how the fear activated. Not to judge or change it, just to understand its triggers. Then, I started with gentle glades, creating new experiences that slowly overrode the old pattern. Each successful run became a data point, showing my brain that a different reality was possible. Gradually, I took on more challenging terrain, but always within a range that let me maintain control and build confidence. Eventually, skiing through trees became natural again, not because I suppressed the fear, but because I had built new neural pathways alongside it. But here's where it gets interesting. The same brain that creates fear patterns also generates patterns of power seeking and control. These patterns masquerade as success strategies. What makes them particularly dangerous is how our society celebrates and rewards them. Here's the truth most leadership books won't tell you. Power seeking behaviors often emerge as substitutes for unfulfilled needs. When we lack genuine belonging, authentic connection, or true self worth, we try to fill that void with power over others. I've seen this play out in tech leadership, including in myself. Take control addiction, that compulsion to manage every aspect of a project, to have a backup plan for every backup plan. We tell ourselves it's about risk management or attention to detail, but really, it's about fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of losing control, fear of being exposed as not good enough. Then there is status seeking, that endless game of one upmanship, always needing the better title, the bigger impact, the more prestigious affiliation. You know you're caught in this pattern when you find yourself compulsively checking your peers' LinkedIn profiles, measuring yourself against their achievements. It's exhausting and it never ends because there's always someone doing better. Resource hoarding goes beyond money. It's about anything that might give us an edge: information, relationships, opportunities. We gather this far beyond our needs because deep down we don't trust that we'll be okay without this external security blanket. Most insidious of all are the dominance behaviors that need to be right or on top in every situation. It always shows up as always having to have the last word, always having to prove your point, always positioning yourself as an expert. I catch myself doing this in meeting, that urge to demonstrate superiority, even in a small ways. What makes these patterns so tricky is how they reinforce each other. Control addiction leads to resource hoarding, which enables status seeking, which promotes dominance behaviors. It's a self perpetuating cycle that can consume your whole life if you let it. Even after achieving success, I find myself trapped in these behaviors, always seeking more power, more control, more validation. Breaking free requires something counterintuitive. You have to be willing to feel powerless, to sit with uncertainty, to let go of control. Only then you can discover a different kind of power. Not power over others, but power with them. Not power from dominance, but power from authentic creation. But the deepest level of conditioning happens through social identities. We build elaborate cages of who we are: professional identities, national identities, status identities. Each one promises security but demands conformity. Each one claims to protect us while actually keeping us imprisoned in patterns that prevent authentic expression. Think about how much energy you spend protecting these identities. The professional identity that never lets you say, I don't know. The status identity that drives you to maintain appearances. The national identity that separates you from those outside your borders. When I was playing the tech director role, I felt compelled to have an answer for everything. Heaven forbid I should admit uncertainty that would break the identity of the all knowing leader. Watch how you shift personas: the professional you, the social you, the family you. Notice how exhausting it is to maintain these different versions of yourself. Breaking free starts with awareness. When you feel the urge to defend your identity, pause. Ask yourself, am I responding to the actual situation or am I protecting an image of myself? Notice the anxiety that arises when you consider going against group norms. That discomfort is your compass pointing to where you need to grow. The real freedom begins when you start experimenting with dropping these identities. Try showing up to situation without your usual identity armor. Get comfortable with not fitting into clear categories. Experience what it's like to interact with others purely as a human being, not as your title or role or affiliation. For me, this meant seeing how my identity as a successful tech leader was actually limiting my ability to create authentic value. Every decision was filtered through the lens of, will this enhance or threaten my identity? When I finally started speaking truth, regardless of the identity cost, I lost some opportunities, I lost some relationships. But I gained something far more valuable: authenticity. Here's the ultimate paradox: only by letting go of who you think you should be can you discover who you actually are. Only by releasing the need for any particular identity can you express your authentic self. Your mind's plasticity, its ability to form new neural pathways, never goes away. You can rewire these patterns at any age, in any circumstance. But you have to be willing to let go of the familiar comfort of your identities and power seeking behaviors. Most people get this wrong. They try to think their way into new patterns, but the mind doesn't rewire through thinking, it rewires through experience. You have to actually experience operating beyond social identities. You have to feel what it's like to create value without seeking power. Remember, your mind is not your enemy. It's just running old programs that once helped you survive. Thank them for their service and then get to work creating new patterns that align with who you're becoming. The mind you have is not the mind you're stuck with, it's the raw material for the mind you're creating. Thank you, folks.